Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You look good. I'm loving this shirt. I'm
Oh
doing
yeah,
good.
I had to represent.
Yes.
You know.
I got friends on too, friend.
Yay.
Yeah.
Let's
I
see.
love it. Oh, I'm so excited.
Me too. Let me see if I can get Dr. Kratz to come on in. Let's see.
Your Monday's going good so far?
Yeah, it is busy, but I guess that's a good thing.
Yay.
Yay! Oh my gosh. So excited to be here.
Me too.
Marley, girl, you got it going on.
Listen, I appreciate all the support. Like, it means the world. So I'm excited to be here. This is where it all started.
Yes. I love this already.
Yep.
See, we already getting into it.
let me calm down. Okay, I'll behave.
I know.
Okay.
I know. Me too. I want to jump right in.
Well,
Do you know that we actually spend most of our time in the same state together?
Really?
mm-hmm.
Yep. All three of us. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know about Stephanie.
Well, I'm new to that. I'm new. I can't even claim that.
You can't get rid of it now, Steph.
Right.
There's no way. Yeah, we're all in Florida. Most of my work is in Florida.
Okay.
I'm in the Tampa Bay area, even though I work in LA. So, and then I get to go to some other places too. But we have Florida represented big time.
There we go.
All right, y'all.
I
We got a lot of people
I did not know
joining
that.
in.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hi, confidence coach Cass, Demarby. Am I saying that right? I'm sorry. Thank you for joining.
Look at all these names coming in. Yes.
I know.
New
It's
names.
awesome.
New.
I think your audience is growing every week, which is awesome.
Yes, that's good. Yep, we've been getting a lot of good feedback from our live sessions. So with that, we're going to try to make this short and sweet, but very in-depth and inspirational for our support social workers.
Sure.
We try to keep these live sessions to about 30 minutes or so just to keep everyone engaged. So with that, we'll just get started. I'm Stephanie Rosado. I'm on the exec team for the Alliance of Social Workers in Sports, current PhD student at USF. Dr. Kratz is here as well. You guys have been seeing her every week, and she's amazing. She's an exec team member for the Alliance as well. And I have the honor, drum roll please, of introducing Miss Marley Holmes. So I'm going to read my little bio because I have to do it justice, okay? So Marlene, or Marley Holmes, is the founder and CEO of the BFCA Experience. Whoop, whoop. I'm repping her shirt, y'all. If y'all haven't got one yet, you need to get one. By the way, mine is custom made because I'm a Boricua female athlete. So just saying. She graduated from the University of Central Florida and the proud alumni of the Great Bethune-Cookman University. Marley earned her graduate degree in social work, which has allowed her to work with all demographics, including athletes, families, and individuals. Marley is currently earning her doctoral degree in social work at Barry University in Miami. Woo-hoo. Her professional experience includes Executive Director of Admissions and Healthcare, Regional Director of Education for Tutoring and College Readiness, and Curriculum Development for Substance Abuse Programs, Curriculum Development, Athlete Life Skills Programs, Athletic Transition, and Security Officers within healthcare settings. Marley has utilized her athletic skills by transferring them into corporate America and developing her own business. Marley shares her intercollegiate athletic experience and corporate journey with students, student athletes, coaches, and educators to promote a healthier and intentional platform for recruitment, academic readiness, and preparation for corporate America. Marley's research interest is focused on the emotional and mental impact for Black female collegiate athletes as they shift from being an athlete to a professional. But her passion is contributing to the growth of all athletes. She has presented at too many to count local and national conferences. Most recently, though, she is a published author. She's going to talk more about that. We'll get into that a little bit later. And she will tell us all about her experience as an athlete, how she's contributed to her community. In 2021, Marley was featured on Revolt TV's Halftime Report as a social worker, former D1 volleyball player, and JUCO national tennis qualifier. Marley has dedicated her life to being an example for all athletes, Black athletes, and Black female athletes. So welcome, Marley.
Wow.
Marley, whoa.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You deserve it. I mean, you're freaking awesome. I mean, that I didn't even list everything. That was just a little snapshot. So you're gonna tell us a little bit more. Dr. Kratz, would you like to start off our interview officially?
I'd love to. I would love to. And you guys see all these hearts that are flying on the screen? Like Marley, you were.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know why? Because you really are so loved and so admired. You're a role model for all of us. We're so thirsty to learn from you. And
you're me emotional.
I know. But we certainly are. And your track record just speaks so much. And like Steph said, we haven't even gotten to all the even deep dive into some of the other things that you've been doing. So even locally, right there. So you know what? Of course, we're all sports social workers on this screen right now. And I really would love to hear from your first person, from your voice. Why do you think social work and sport are so good together?
You know, I'll be honest, with the transition from being in healthcare, substance abuse, merging the two wasn't even a thought. But the reason why it fits is because it goes to the foundation of being a social worker. We care about the well-being of people. And it makes me think of the publication by Dr. Moore and I believe Dr. Ginger, where it's just the overall functioning and the well-being of athletes or people. So it merges because we look beyond the exterior. We look beyond what the representative of the person. So you can walk in as an athlete and I see your jersey, but I still see a person. I still see someone's son, someone's daughter, someone's mother, someone's father. You know, we forget that as college athletes, they are also parents, right? For many of them that we don't talk about. And that's something that's forgotten. But what I'm trying to say is we see them for who they are. And as a social worker, we are conditioned that way. We are trained that way. But I feel like so many of us have that naturally, like we're born with that. And so I think it merges so well because it's an organic fit. And we also have the ability to adapt and support and collaborate with other professionals, even where they may not see where it fits. We can come in there and still make it work as a team.
I love that, like the blending that you say. Yeah, really. And with not only interdisciplinary, but then as we come together and create something brand new, it's transdisciplinary.
Absolutely.
So I just feel that so deeply. And the work that you're doing, you certainly are working with all sorts of disciplines at one time.
Yes.
You've talked about psychology, sociology, even kinesiology, I think you mentioned, yeah.
Absolutely.
And a shout out to Dr. Moore and Ginger Gamalt for their textbook, right? Are you using that somewhere?
Yeah, like that was, I think, my introduction. So when the book was published, I was already a part of the Alliance of Social Workers in Sports, but it came out and I said, okay, let me get a better understanding because I have my perception of it. But when you look at the application of it, it really is a different compartment in our minds that we're not necessarily taught in a Master of Social Work program, right? But we still have that tool belt, right? That metaphor of the tool belt. We still have it. We just learn how to use it differently. And so with reading that literature and then reading literally my experience of being a Black athlete, of being a Black female athlete, and realizing like, wow, the years of working in a healthcare system, the years of working as a director for a tutoring program for K through 12, where a lot of my students were athletes, but they needed help with the ACT, the SAT, the college admission process. And I'm in here doing therapy, but they have no idea, right? That I'm watching the parent to child dynamic. I see the financial disparities in the communities, and I'm seeing how we don't certain organizations, I don't want to say names, don't want to market to certain communities. But as a social worker, I don't believe in, you know, neglect or putting those communities aside, because I was once part of that community. So there's so many opportunities for sport to come into play, even if it's just academic. There's so many spaces where all they heard was former D1 athlete. And they're like, sure, can you come today at 5? And I was like, wait, you don't want a background check? You don't want to, you know, make sure everything is good? But there's so much leverage. And I really think that's what the Alliance has taught me, is the leverage of what it is to come from social work as well as being a former athlete.
Awesome. Oh my God. You spoke to so many things, you know, the transferable skills, the not only disparities among like athletics, but also how being an athlete kind of puts you in this bracket, right? And how people view you and how people interpret you and what they think about you even before getting to know you, and how, you know, you can leverage that, but also how it can be a detriment too.
Absolutely. Because I think about, unfortunately, people that we have coming into these spaces that are not necessarily doing the research, and we see it as popular now, right? So there's a lot of money in this. And so if they were to say yes to me that easily, that means they're saying yes to a lot of people. And so that's why I think it's so important that anyone who's in this space, that we understand the value we have and how it can really make or break when we come into these spaces. So I couldn't just make the shift to sports social work. I had to read, I had to learn. And because the journey really has grown with me through my doctoral program, it's helped me evolve. The services I provide have changed, and just how we communicate, how we market, but most importantly, what the need is in the community, in the world. I mean, that also changed a lot with COVID, and those conversations are still happening. But I think as a social worker and as a sports social worker, we're able to adapt and shift fairly easy, because that's what we always do.
That's a good point. We always do that. And we're trained to pivot easily.
Yep.
And just like you said, use the evidence that we have. The best evidence, sometimes it still has big gaps in it. And Steph, you're living that right now with developing your dissertation. You know, okay, so we need to know more, but we use what we have as well. And this whole, it really brings me to that idea of evidence-based, evidence-informed, practice-based wisdom. You know, bringing it all together to have the best experience for the people that we serve.
Absolutely.
All the time. Whew. It's a lot, isn't it? We have a,
it's a lot.
We have so much to keep up with as sports social workers. We're producing the research, but we have to keep going in all the different disciplines as well.
I agree. And, you know, I'll be honest, when I was at UCF, all the theories and all that, I was like, what is going on? What is happening? Like, do I really need to know all of this? But as you start to work in the world and in the profession, it starts to click and it starts to make sense. And so when I talk to athletes, or I talk to parents, or I talk to staff, one of the easiest concepts for them to grasp, because I love it, is solution focused. If you think about athletes and how we're trained and what we're trying to do, and even the administration and the coaches, when you present that solution focused concept, they kind of like, okay, maybe this wasn't social work, or not what I thought it was, right? You have to learn how to speak their language, still be resourceful, but you adapt in those spaces. So I totally agree with everything you said.
That's amazing. And, you know, like Dr. Kratz and Marley, you've been saying, you know, there's so much to learn. There's so many things to pick up on and to keep developing as sports social workers, as academics, as whatever. But with those gaps comes a lot of opportunity too. And you've been able to capitalize on some of those opportunities as well. So with that, let's shift a little bit. And can you tell us a little bit about what motivated you to start your own business and merge sports social work with entrepreneurship?
For sure. Well, if anyone on here follows me, you know, I'm very organic and very transparent. You know, this is from the ground up, but it's through life experiences. And I think when people can see your journey, or you share it with them, even they weren't part of everything, it's so important. So before I developed the BFCA Experience, I actually had my own meditation company. And so now that's a service merged into the BFCA Experience. But what happened was I was an administrator for about 9 years in healthcare. And so that means being on call 24/7. I had mental health, I had substance abuse, I had residential, the kids were going to school, people breaking doors with fire extinguishers, fights in the ER, everything you could imagine. I was doing that for about almost 9 years. And basically my health started to fail because I was go. I never got time off unless I was out of the country. And I'm not exaggerating. And I worked in Orlando, between Orlando and South Florida through that whole time with the same company and just a lot of moving around. And I just wasn't taking care of myself. All that we hear in school about burnout, it's real. So if any of you are students, it's real. And so, you know, I wasn't eating well, wasn't sleeping well. You tend to be the go-to person in friendship. So everything that was around me and needed attention, I was giving it that, and there was no attention or self-care for myself. So long story short, I started passing out at work, passing out at flea markets. Like, it got really bad. High blood pressure. And my doctor was like, I'm not raising your blood pressure medication again. I was in my mid-20s at the time, like mid to late 20s. And she said, you need to quit your job. You need to quit your job and figure it out, or you will have a heart attack in the next 6 months. Like, verbatim is what she told me. And so I went home, I prayed on it for about a week, and I put my 2 weeks in. Didn't have the savings you need, didn't have anything that was going to say, okay, you could ride this out for about, 6 months, as Susie Norman would say. Nope, couldn't do it. But I knew that this job wasn't worth dying for, and I knew they would fill my position before I was even buried in the ground. So I made the decision to leave the job. Nothing. Sold everything. And I had previously lived in South Florida, so Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, with this company. And something just drew me back. And so I said, okay. So I started literally driving to like Palm Beach early in the morning for like 7:30 interviews to drive back to work, to be at work on time. And I did that for about maybe 2-3 weeks. And I got a job that was going to pay me like 8 something as a tech. So I was a director, and I was willing to make absolutely nothing. And I was like, I'm going to work as many jobs as I have to. Probably not going to help the stress, but I just kind of had faith. And that's really what it was. And so long story short, in that shift, in the midst of doing all the interviews, is when I got the job as a regional director for a tutoring program between Texas and Florida. And so that's where I started doing meditation. I saw a celebrity who was doing meditation. I was like, let me check this out. I'm a Christian. Is this really what I can do? Or is this going to be a little issue, And I did my research. I was like, wow. And so I started meditating. And I could truly see the shift in my life, in my health. I loved going to work every day. I loved working with these kids. I loved to go to the schools. And that's where something started to click. I was going to high schools, Boca, West Boca, Spanish River High School. I was speaking to Jack and Jill, and all these connections came from speaking to football teams and volleyball teams and their parents. But I was working for this company, so my job is to go market and to get you in so that I can sell you a tutoring package for you. But that wasn't me at my root, right? I'm not here to tell you knowledge, but strings are attached. So I could only stay there for about a year because it just didn't feel right. Like I had, as a social worker, I had people coming in needing services. And because they don't have $10,000 for tutoring, I have to let them go. It was tough. So I left there. And so around that same time, I started my doctorate program. And so initially I was going to look at and I plan on doing it down the line, but looking at the omission of Black social workers, Black female social workers specifically, in social work curriculum. It got a little heavy, and I didn't really want to be the Tupac just yet of social work. So I said, well, let's back up a little bit, but had no idea what I wanted to do. And I started reading a lot with Serena Williams and Venus Williams, and I just started to see more than ever me, right? And so with reading the literature and digging deeper and deeper, I told one of my professors, now on my dissertation committee, I'm trying to go fast. I was like, there's something with sports. There's something with women and Black women, but I don't know how to make this happen. But there's something there. And she said, I've never heard of it. I don't know. But if you want to do it, we'll figure it out.
That's awesome that you had that kind of mentor.
Yeah. Dr. Heidi, like, she's phenomenal. And literally 2 days later, she heard a young lady, and I hate that I cannot remember her name. I want to say it's Stephanie, but I don't remember. But she was in her master's program, and she was at Barry, and Dr. Heidi overheard her talking about a TED Talk that she was going to be doing. And she interrupted her meeting and said, I am so sorry, but I have a student that I really need you to meet, because her TED Talk was called Benched. And she was like, I need you to meet Marlene, and y'all need to figure this out. And that's how I was introduced to Lines of Social Work. So you can't tell me faith and prayer and meditation doesn't work. And then just honestly, the evolution of everything of learning, I was like, I can merge this, we can build this. And it's just been God. You know, we have a long way to go, but it's been amazing thus far.
Yeah, that's such a powerful story, and just about faith and how you were able to bridge sort of your two loves, you know, and not necessarily knowing that you were going to do that later on, right?
No clue.
And
no clue.
It's funny because I think, well, not for everyone, but I know for me, for sure, like I kind of fell into that because of a wonderful mentor that I've had, Dr. Kratz. But you know, a lot of us social workers kind of like fall into it, like, wait, this is a thing, we can do this kind of thing. And we have so many followers right now that join or, you know, talk to us or communicate with us and like, sports social work, like, I can do that. That's a thing. Right. And yes, it is. We are here to tell you it is.
Bring those two passions together. And Marley, kind of like what you said in the beginning, it's just like, it's just a natural. I cannot, at this point in my career, I can't imagine strong communities without strong sport and athletic, intentional programming and behaviors and access. How can you, anybody that says you can do that without sport, I beg to differ. You just can't.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And even like Marley touched on this, like, it's not just having sport, it's equitable sport, right? Because like when we talk about Serena and Venus and you, Marley, even, you know, me and you have shared several conversations where we talk about this and that access to sports, or the type of sports we can access as people of color. So that's very interesting, and I'm so glad that you brought that up and you were able to share that with us. So we have some more questions, a couple more questions for you. So you kind of shared with us, we're just summarizing for those who just joined, you shared with us your background, kind of like what led you to social work, then what led you specifically to sports social work, and your amazing experience and diverse experience. So now we're going to switch a little bit to talk about the future. What are you working on now, and what are your hopes for this career path in the future? Can you share with us?
Listen, it's funny you asked, because literally I was sending out texts today to folks that I'm in partnership with and saying, hey, 2022 is around the corner. I'm late, but we got to start planning and just revisiting those relationships and just, you know, staying together and figuring out what we can do next. So there's a lot going on. 2022, graduating. I need to defend by June, so y'all pray for me on that.
You got it.
So that is number one priority. I will say that it's a little crazy to start a business to this magnitude in the midst of a doctoral program. So it's been a little crazy and didn't do the best with balancing, but hey, it's all right. I'm still here, still have time. But graduating with the degree is number one, and then just expanding the BFCA experience. So I'm going to make an announcement in January of kind of what's going on in shift-wise with the company. Definitely just looking for expansion and making sure we are in the best possible area to be accessible physically as well as virtually. So I'll leave that there. But also, you know, we just want to continue to expand on our services. So right now we are doing workshops for colleges. I've made some amazing relationships with some deans and vice presidents. And as they shift, they bring me with them. So I got to give a shout out to Dean Brown, who is at Eureka College, and she's in the process of shifting. And, you know, she's had me do workshops specifically for her Black male athletes, as well as for all of the athletes. So I'm so thankful that administration is starting to recognize the importance of those spaces that we need for Black athletes or athletes of color, as well as, you know, our female athletes, our male athletes, our women athletes, excuse me, or even our non-gender binary athletes. Like, we need spaces for everyone to have those organic and transparent conversations. And so when we come into these spaces, I really find out, you know, what do they need? So we've done workshops for everything with transition, and I make sure that I partner with people that may know it a little better than me. I don't claim to know it all, right? So as a social worker, I can definitely go in on the emotional, the psychological. I can go in with that emotional intelligence, I can talk about all of that. But if you want to talk about money, I can give you probably what you shouldn't do, but let me get some expert, right? And not the person that's going to give you all the cliche stuff that you hear and balancing a checkbook. Like, I don't want to talk about that. I really want to talk about what happened in your past. What were you exposed to? What did your parents say? What did you hear at the dinner table that now shapes how you spend that stipend at college, right? Whether you are, you know, at Bethune-Cookman University, which is Division I, but what we got was not a lot, right? But let's say you're at Baylor, what you're getting is probably a nice check. So, you know, are you buying you know, Nike outfits and shoes and all of that? Do you know anything about budgeting? And what I find is that the relationships and the conversations we hear, I had an athlete in an open setting in one of the groups say, well, the earliest memory of money that I have, and this comes from my partner, her name is Coach Reese with UIsh. And the question that she asked that was powerful, when did you first learn about money? And we dig and we co-facilitate these sessions, and we dig deep, and we find out some people's first impression of money was their parents saying, oh, I can't afford those shoes.
Yep. That's deep.
And so you think about that, and I think about my experience when I graduated college and I got a job. If y'all remember Pastries by Angela Simmons and all of them, I had every pastry in the world. Every pastry. You know, 'cause I didn't have Jordans. I didn't really want Jordans. But I had a good life. I was a military kid, but I didn't learn till later that those impressions, those conversations, and emotionally feeling like I was missing something, or with my environment, became something I was like, wow, you know. So even when she talks, or any of my relationships talk, and we go through these, I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't even think about that, you know. So we're doing a lot. So curriculum development, workshops. We're going to expand our capacity a little more for individual services. So I don't do therapy, but we definitely provide support in transition. And I feel that if it is high risk or concern, we will refer you out. So I am looking to expand to have licensed social workers. The goal is to have licensed social workers in every state. So that way, whenever I have a athlete and we need to refer them somewhere, we have that relationship and that connection. Because it does happen, and a lot of people don't think about that. But if I'm in a Zoom call with you and you told me, you know, yesterday you had thoughts about not wanting to live, I can't just get off the Zoom and say, well, I hope it works out. You know, you got to have those resources. So a lot going on, curriculum development, and just making it happen.
Yes,
that's awesome.
Yes, and that's amazing that you're able to acknowledge, like, hey, I may not know everything, but I have a team, I have a community of, you know, social workers and non-social workers who I can call on to help me lift this off the ground and get it going and learn the things that I don't know, and you know, ultimately help the client or the athlete or, you know, the person beneath the jersey, like you said. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, just keeping it to the idea of furthering it, like it's that person that also is part of a family, and that definition of family is wide, and then their people, their team, their community, their school, it just keeps going. So, of course, at the Alliance of Social Workers in Sports, we have our clinical sports social work team and committee that's run by Jessica Joyner and Christine Mosier. Those are awesome resources to keep like those conversations going every single time. And there's about I think there's about 40 people on the roster that are part of that committee, and they meet monthly. It's fabulous. So anything that you want to refer to, and I'm part of that too, and Steph's coming on, and anything you want to refer to that, that's wide open. The other thing I was thinking about,
I'm sorry, especially when she talked about getting people in different states, obviously.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Christine is in Boston. Jessica's, those are the two co-chairs. Jessica's in Denver. So, I mean, like, and there's plenty all over, really. But the other thing that's really exciting, too, is I just recently learned about the subspecialty of financial social work.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yes, and there is, I wish I knew her name. I'm kind of embarrassed I don't, but there's a woman that started it. And she's got a whole company that's called Financial Social Work. So that might be a great collaborator.
Wow, absolutely. Yeah, Coach Reese has taught me so much, and it's a very, I don't give too much of her tea away, but she does it in a way that allows me to come in with social work, and it's mind blowing. And you can see the faces in the conference, because we're talking about money, but we're not really talking about money. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's like, wow. And so anyone that I build a relationship with, we have a conversation, and she was the first person to kind of do her services to me. And I was like, what is happening? So because you put yourself back to being 18, 19, 20, 21, and you understand how important nations are now more than ever. So it's just so important. So yes, I'm so glad to be a part of Alliance and those relationships. And I'm meeting with my co-director of our past program this weekend, because I said we need to start incorporating the Alliance more, because you all have been so supportive and the resources have been phenomenal, which helps me. It's a lot easier I don't have to think as hard, because I see and I have the resources right at my hand. So thank you.
That's awesome.
I think it's
a shout out.
Yeah, and that idea, like, we just surround ourselves with each other for our energy and our knowledge, and it fuels, and it helps with that burnout, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To like save it off. Hey, by the way, did you guys know Susie Orsman, the social worker? Did you know that?
Who?
No.
Yes. Susie, she's got a social work degree, the famous financial guru that is.
Okay, got you.
Yes.
A
lot
crazy.
of
She's helped me out. Listen, when I was going through the tough times, and it's been a whirlwind. She has her stuff together. Oh,
Valen says she has a BSW. Yeah, that's awesome.
How about that? So cool. Yeah.
That's amazing. And just for everyone that's tuning into, like, Dr. Kratz and I are on here representing the Alliance, but it's so much bigger than us. Like, we're just doing this, to spread information, but we have such a great team. Our president, Miss Anita Daniels, our treasurer, Tarkington Newman, Ginger Gumlet, Matt Moore, our past president. I'm just throwing all the plugs in there, because you see us here on Instagram Live. It's not just us. It's a community of people. There's several committees that we have full of people that are contributing to this Alliance. So I just wanted to put that up there before, we wrap up, because we are showing our faces, Dr. Kratz and I, but there really is a team of people behind this. So shout out to our membership and our team. So Marley, we have one more question for you. Dr. Kratz, do you want to take it away?
No, read it, Steph. I've been talking so much.
Okay. So, Marley, what recommendations would you have to anyone looking into starting a sports social work career, or even shifting their career to sports social work, something like you did?
Wow, that's kind of a hard question. But I'm going to take a shot at it. The first thing is, everyone says find your purpose. I'm going to say find what makes you happy. Find what you can do, and hopefully it is sport, hopefully it's working with athletes, hopefully is finding the developmental, like connecting the relationships and how you develop, how you support it. If you care about where people are coming from and where they're going, there's so many things that social work includes that doesn't always fit in the box of what I think systemically and socially what we say. And so if you like any of those, if you just like working with people, but specifically the sport. You don't have to, honestly, you never had to play a sport in your life. I think it helps, but you can still not be an athlete. A lot of us grow up in sports families, and you know, you still have that, and you have the passion, the care, and the empathy to understand what they go through day in and day out. And so if you're making a shift, I'll start with that. Do your research. I'm a big person on do your research with the salaries, build those relationships, utilize LinkedIn. I've been lowballed so many times in my career because I wasn't prepared for what was coming next. So coming out of college, I really didn't have a plan. I didn't, right? Once all the injuries set in and there just was no chance of going overseas after graduating, it was just like, okay, well, I'm just going to graduate. And I was dealing with grief as well. So there were so many things that I think planted the seed, even in hard times, for me. So start to think a little bit about your journey and your experience and how you got through that, because there's someone else that is going through that same thing that you may be able to feed directly to, not just through your experience, but through your profession, through the research, through different tools that you can provide. And so when, you know, and just being aware of who you are. So I say, find what makes you happy. And once I started reading the literature, it was like, I like this, but I'm all over the place, but I'm going to back up about being lowballed, because when I say do your research with that, when I got promoted to being a director within the company, they told me what I was going to make. Right. And so I was like, oh, that's great. That's, you know, $7,000 increase. But then they moved me to South Florida. I was like, oh, I'm broke. Right. Nobody told me about this.
Yeah.
You know, so where you're living, where you're going, like there's so much that comes into that. And then the next job, within the company, I moved to a different hospital. They said, well, what are you looking to make? I was like, no one's ever asked me that. And, you know, I threw out a number and lowballed myself. Found out like 2 years later that I was the lowest paid director by like $35,000.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So I learned very quickly, but that was 8 years. 8 years of being underpaid because I didn't do my research. I didn't know how to negotiate. I didn't know that I had a voice in certain spaces, or any space for that matter. So do your research in these spaces. A lot of times you may be the first social worker. You may be the first mental health counselor. You may be the first Black person, the first woman, or all of the intersections, which has been the majority of my career. You have to be prepared for that. So getting a mentor, having the support, being prepared and knowing what conversations are going to come up and being prepared for those are going to be critical, because things that I experienced as an athlete, believe it or not, I see it in corporate America. Things that I experienced in the boardroom with being usually the youngest, usually the only person of color or Black person. And so racism, ageism, and sexism, was not prepared for all of those with a master's degree. And I knew it existed, but hey, I have these degrees, I deserve to be here. Yeah, that's not what everyone feels, right? So coming into a new profession that we're still having to educate people, you're going to have to know your stuff, but don't think that you're not qualified to be in that space just because other people are uncomfortable. So be brave to go for it, apply for that, for any positions, even if it doesn't say social work, still apply for it.
Totally.
Every position I've taken after leaving the hospital was not social work. I had to go into every job and educate them on what a social worker is, what I do, how I do it, and why I do it. And I never have to downplay social work. So it took practice, but once I experienced that burnout, I said, you know, I'm going to wear my nails how I want to wear them. I'm going to wear my braids, because I had spent so long conforming, and that's a whole nother conversation. But once I realized that it didn't matter, it didn't matter. My knowledge, my expertise, and my dedication to whoever I'm working with is going to be there, and the right place will happen. And so social work has truly given that to me. So like right now I do instructional design. How many social workers are instructional designers, right? But building curriculum, doing research, evaluating the needs. Like I literally go into companies and perform like a verbal needs assessment. They don't know I'm doing that. but that's what I'm doing.
Right. You just dropped so many gems there. Even school social worker put some little gems in the chat.
Transition, do it. Just do your research. That's all I have to say. And I'm here if you have any questions, but do your research.
Yeah.
I love
But
it.
and you know that idea of coming together, like Marley, you're a master at finding mentors as well, and then spreading that joy into mentorship. And now you have mentees, and we're watching you as you move forward. So, always, I think I love the expression: social workers never work alone. Never work alone, and finding people that forward us and move the team down the court. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, there we go. That's our 2 take homes. Do your research and pay it forward.
That's it. Make it. It doesn't have to be hard for everyone. You know, like I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. So so just reach out. And I was late in the mentor game. Like I didn't have a mentor till I got to Cookman because she was my academic advisor. You know, and I didn't utilize her how like I should have until like years later, but it's important. So get a mentor, get someone that's supportive, and you can learn all about it. And then also, if you want to learn about transitioning from different athletes, I got a book too.
Go ahead, plug it.
No, I'm super excited. Look, I hope nothing falls over. But yeah, this is my first contributing author project. So there are like 16 or 17 authors in here, and they're all former athletes, and we all got to share a little bit about our journey from being an athlete to entrepreneurship. This was super exciting. They're available on my website. Like I've already sold more books than I would have ever imagined. It's probably not a lot to some people, but it's a lot to me. So yeah, it's on here. I think it's a great read for everyone. But if you have athletes, I was able to gift my alma mater within Cookman University. 6 or 7 of their senior volleyball players, they were able to get this book because I was like, I sat in that same locker room in that same gym, putting up those same nets, and this would have been so impactful for me. So I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for everything. And you guys,
Marley, you have got to bring that to our symposium next year on ground and do a talk about it. We gotta get that moving too.
Will do.
When we're all together.
Will do.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, guys. We've been on here long. We've had some great discussion. I don't regret it, but we're trying to keep everything, you know, just in bite-sized pieces, so we have to wrap things up. But Marley, thank you so much for sharing time with Dr. Kratz and I. You are an inspiration, and we can't wait to continue to follow your growth.
Thank you for inviting me. You already know how much I love you, and I'm excited just to see where we go as an organization, where we go individually, professionally, but I think collectively being in this space, we are changing the world. And so we just got to keep doing the work, man.
Fight on. Awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
Marley, big hug. All right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.